Well, we all know that the 49ers and Deebo Samuel are maybe at odds with each other, but whether or not Deebo Samuel gets a deal done with them, is he still a value in Dynasty? That more today on the Dynasty Newsletter. I'm your host, Adam Wilde, joined by my co-host, Chris Allen. Chris, is Deebo a value whether he signs or not with the 49ers?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Because at least at this point, my thought process is that if he was going to be gone, like if there was going to be some sort of trade or something like that imminent, I know, remember like what Odell was talking about, possibly breaking news or something like that, but about a month to 6 weeks ago. If there was something like that going on, at this point, it's June. If Deebo was going to get moved, he would have been moved by now, especially with the post June 1st cuts and things like that, transactions that teams make in order to free up cap space and other contractual obligations. We would have heard something by now about him at like some sort of tectonic plate shifting type of move. That hasn't happened yet. So the best guess is that he's going to remain with the team. And even without the rushing production that kind of put him in the situation, like the all-star range that it put him in, he was still a productive wide receiver. Absolutely. Just on his own right.
Literally equally. I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, he was, on the level of not the same yardage totals or anything but Cooper Kupp level type of production, his ability to create after the catch, so on and so forth. So yes, I would still consider him a value in Dynasty, just because even if the running back stuff goes away, yeah, sure, like it takes away some, but compared to the other wide receivers he's currently ranked around, yeah, I can still consider him a value at this point.
So there's a stat that went around a lot, and I don't know if everybody's seen it, but it's that the first 8 weeks, Deebo Samuel essentially didn't rush at all. He rushed on par with some of the other, like Tyreek Hill or whatever. So rush a few times because they're fast, they're athletic, but not a rusher. Second half of the year, Deebo Samuel essentially quadrupled his rushing production, lined up at running back, which he wasn't doing the first half of the year. And he had almost the exact same fantasy output in the first 8 weeks that he had in the second half of the season. So he's still a very good wide receiver. It kind of brings us to the point where we have to try to read through the tea leaves, but I think that we've maybe been reading through the tea leaves too much, because this is a unique situation in which Deebo Samuel wants to get paid, but the 49ers want to pay him. Mm-hmm. So it's not the player wants to get paid and the team's not meeting him in the middle. Deebo wants to get paid. He's in a position to get paid an immense amount of money. He is probably an MVP candidate. If you think of MVP in the terms of how you should think of MVP, like, okay, I understand it's a quarterback award, but what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't a quarterback? Pretend a quarterback can't win it. Who is more valuable to their team than Deebo Samuel, considering that Kyle Shanahan's offense has worked in the past, but right now works because Deebo Samuel is Deebo Samuel? Mm-hmm. Would he still be successful without Deebo Samuel? Of course, Kyle Shanahan's successful with anyone, but Kyle Shanahan has shown he wants his offense to run through Deebo Samuel. He doesn't care if it's Jimmy Garoppolo out there. They drafted Trey Lance because they obviously want to improve the quarterback situation, sure, but they don't need to. They don't need to. They're still making the Super Bowl. They're still making the NFC Championship with the quarterback play they've got. It's because Kyle Shanahan is so creative. And what do you need to be creative? You need good players. Deebo Samuel's a heck of a player. And now it just comes down to how much did the 49ers actually wrong him, okay? Because if there's more that's going on that we don't know about, which would be a huge surprise at this point in the season if it had not come out yet. But if there was, then, okay, what are we going to do? I don't know. But if it just comes down to Deebo Samuel doesn't want to play running back anymore, who cares if you're the 49ers? Okay, fine. Don't make him play running back anymore. Guess what? You just drafted Tyrion Davis-Price. Okay, so you got another running back. Boom. Now you don't need Deebo Samuel to play running back anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so Trey Sermon was a bust. That's fine, because you got an absolute steal in the 6th round with Elijah Mitchell. You got a starting running back in the 6th round. So here's your Alfred Morris again. You got lucky twice in your career, Kyle Shanahan. And now you've got Tyrion Davis-Price. So you took another shot in the 3rd round. Hopefully Tyrion Davis-Price is a 1-for-1 replacement for Trey Sermon, and Trey Sermon can just honestly probably be released because they like JaMychal Hasty and they like Jeff Wilson Jr. Maybe Trey Sermon just gets released, but that tells me that if they're going to spend another third-round pick at running back because they don't believe in Trey Sermon, they're probably preparing to lose some of the rushing production that they were getting from Deebo. So it looks like everybody's happy in this situation. They just need to sign on the dotted line. Now, if it's more than Deebo doesn't want to play running back, I got nothing for you. I mean, that could happen with any player on any team. Someone's not meshing. Someone's not agreeing. He disagrees with Kyle Shanahan. Okay, then it might not get done. But if it comes down to Deebo not wanting to play running back anymore, does not matter because he was just as productive playing exclusively wide receiver as he was in that hybrid role. So they need him either way. Kyle Shanahan would prefer him in the hybrid role. But, hey, once you pay him as much as you're going to have to pay him, maybe you don't prefer him in that hybrid role. Like, it's nice for your offense, but maybe if you can replace that, you don't want to pay the guy $25 million and, like, line him up in the backfield and try to run him between the tackles. So,
no, you probably don't. But even still,
just do it. Just pay him and keep him out of the backfield. Everyone's happy. Move on.
Right. Just last season, I know, like, if everyone just looks at the box score, I mean, 1,400 yards, I mean, all the production is there in order to say, yes, like, this is a wide receiver they would want to invest in. But think about, I mean, 120 targets on San Francisco offense, which bottom half of the league in pass rate over expectation, 28% target share.
Yeah,
I mean, that is like a beyond like prime Hopkins level target share
while playing running back.
On top of that. So, like, but going back to our earlier point, even if you take away the running back opportunities, the wide receiver opportunities for him, his actual role is plentiful on that offense. So unless you are banking on Brandon Ayuk taking just this monster leap forward in terms of his skill set and his role in the team, all of it lines up with Deebo continuing to have that wide receiver one target share on his own team, which is more than most other receivers like within the entire league. So yeah, of course, like he remains a value, just with the other stuff. You take all this stuff away, sure, drops his ceiling, but the floor is so much higher than so many other wide receivers at this point that I would still consider him to be well within the top 12.
Oh, yeah, absolutely well within the top 12. But I mean, currently ranked at like wide receiver 9. I have him at wide receiver 4, I believe, in my most recent rankings. And I think I was the highest on him for Footballguys. And if you acknowledge that a lot of people don't have Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 4, well, if you just break it down, okay, Deebo Samuel passing Cooper Kupp, not hard because there's a 3-year age difference there. So
that's right. Yeah, Cooper Kupp is a bit older.
Yep, came into the league old. He's going to be 29. So he can pass Cooper Kupp. There's the only 2 players. We'll make this easier. He won't pass Justin Jefferson. He will not pass Jamar Chase.
But Diggs?
Sure, I think I would take him over Diggs now, to be honest with you.
That makes sense, yeah.
So, and like I said, I was the highest ranker, so of course I'm going to say that. But I guess my point is he slots in at 3 just by signing a new contract and producing again. Like, sign a new contract, get back on the field, showed that last year wasn't a fluke. Because remember, last year Brandon Ayuk was the guy, and we were drafting Ayuk higher than Deebo, right? Because Deebo was coming off injury 2 years ago. So we've only had really 1 year of Deebo Samuel's career where he was like elite.
Right.
So he probably has to prove that again to prove that last year wasn't a fluke or whatever, which he will. Last year was incredible, and it'll probably be incredible again. So you're getting him some leagues wide receiver 8, 7, 10 wide receiver. Well, no, I mean, the difference between 10 and 3 is a lot different. Yeah, is a lot different between like 30 and 23.
Yeah,
it's a huge difference. So
because for some folks, I mean, what are the chances? I know that some folks have like guys like DK like ranked ahead of him.
Yeah,
the chances that he could wind up surpassing DK at this point.
So the names that he could pass is DK. He could pass AJ Brown depending on the leap that Devonta Smith has with a year of rapport with Jalen Hurts. He's naturally going to do better in year 2. Had a great rookie season, so it's not even he's going to earn targets. It could be a big less of a split. And then so he passes AJ Brown, he passes DK Metcalf. Those are the 2 big ones that he needs to get past. Then he has to pass the names like easily passes Tyreek Hill if that's another situation where it's like Jalen Waddle's not just going to take a backseat to Tyreek Hill. That could be more of a 50-50 split right now. Then you're talking about Devontae Adams. Well, he just went to a new team. He's 29. So Deebo Samuel has an easy path to wide receiver 3, and you're getting him at wide receiver 7, 8 right now. Once he signs and he shows that he's elite, you can't buy him. Yeah. So if you think that he's going to sign with the 49ers, which I do, which I have not yet mentioned, that Ian Rappaport last week reported that he thinks it gets done with the 49ers. And we were talking about that before the show. If a reporter says they think, I immediately turn my ears off because you just want me to retweet or like your post. Honestly, like I respect your work and I respect what you do. And I think that you guys are doing a great job as reporters, but it's not what you think that matters. It's the firsthand sources that you have, what they told you that matters. However, like we were talking about before the show, if it's Ian Rappaport, in my opinion, I think coming from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter, those big guys, means that they know, but they don't have the concrete evidence yet to report it to their respective branches. So in my opinion, if he's going to report he thinks, then deal's pretty much inevitable. And that's an opportunity right now to trade for Deebo Samuel before the post comes out that Deebo Samuel inked blah, 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 mega deal. Yep. So that's going to do it on Deebo Samuel. We both think that he's a value. Probably trade windows closing very, very quickly because what we failed to mention is just Deebo Samuel being the first-hand source. If I'm going to talk about needing first-hand sources confirming that he's going to sign, well, he's also a first-hand source in his deal. And there's multiple videos of him saying, at the club saying, I'm not signing there, blah, blah, blah. So, but, I would say that too until things were fixed, which we're expecting they do get fixed. So just because Deebo said, like, 2 months ago that he's not signing with the team doesn't mean they couldn't have fixed anything since then. So that's going to do it on the Deebo Samuel talk. But now let's get into some injured wide receivers and talk about the Cowboys wide receiver room because they've got some guys missing right now. That includes Michael Gallup, who inked his new deal, who might miss maybe a fourth of the season if everything goes well. And then they brought in James Washington to kind of fill in for Gallup's role last year. So Gallup kind of bumps up to the CeeDee Lamb role. CeeDee Lamb essentially bumps into the Amari Cooper target share. And then James Washington was supposed to be the exciting third receiver that everyone slept on and that I played at captain and showdown slates. And now we've got James Washington in a walking boot. And I believe that CeeDee Lamb, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that CeeDee Lamb's not practicing, but that doesn't necessarily have to be injury related. So somebody has to be catching the ball right now. And that's Jalen Tolbert pretty much. Does this do anything for his dynasty value? Just maybe the fact that he's going to get more looks with a starting caliber quarterback right away. And maybe those looks are good. Do you try to trade for him before he starts showing out in camp or what do you think about Jalen Tolbert's value?
No, I don't care. No. Well, because we're assuming that just because James Washington is injured, then that automatically means that Jalen Tolbert gets elevated up the wide receiver depth chart. Why can't those targets go to Ezekiel Elliott again? Why can't they start utilizing Tony Pollard a bit more? Well, they have other options within the offense, is all I'm saying, is that they can wind up funneling more to Dalton Schultz. I mean, there are other options like on the team versus saying the one-for-one replacement for James Washington is going to be Jalen Tolbert or, I mean, any of the other wide receivers. I mean, heck, why can't we talk about Simi Fehoko, like from last year? Right? Isn't he going to get a shot too? What about Noah Brown?
The problem is that Simi Fehoko already got a shot. He actually got multiple shots.
Rounder.
Well, it's not just that, but he was a promising fifth rounder. Somebody who I played multiple times in preseason DFS last year. Paid off one of the times. He had one decent game, but he also had some regular season work. And for a fifth rounder to get regular season work, you did something good. Yeah. But he didn't do anything with his regular season work. And so that means Simi Fehoko, unfortunately, in my opinion, botched his attempt to or his opportunity to cement like even a Isaiah McKenzie amount of touches.
Mhm.
Not at all the same kind of player, but that amount of touches to where like you are actually a part of the offense, and there will be a target or two for you here and there. I don't think he even earned that role. So then you've got Noah Brown, and Noah Brown has actually balled out at times, but he's like a special teams guy. So the one for one, the reason you go to Jalen Tolbert is like, for one, high draft pick. Um, James, the thing about it though is not just that. Okay, he gets early looks with Dak Prescott, always a good thing, but
Sure.
there's no reason he can't beat out James Washington. James Washington's been beat out before multiple times by
By
multiple
much better
different guys.
receivers, though.
We don't know that yet. Deontay Johnson wasn't. I would argue that Deontay Johnson was comparable to Jalen Tolbert when he came out, and he surpassed James Washington like almost immediately. And Chase Claypool, he came out as like this super freak, Babytron. Like, I get that one kind of. I'm not going to argue that one too much. He probably passed James Washington right away, but James Washington kind of already botched his opportunities. So I really liked James Washington coming out, Blitzknikoff winner, all those good things. I remember arguing that James Washington's height didn't matter because his arms were so long, which I still stand by that. Look, like, I care how high you can get to catch the ball. How your body's shaped is of no concern to me. Like, everyone worries about the height, right? And everybody was worried that James Washington was too short. And I'm like, if his arms are taller than someone 3 inches taller than him, what does it matter?
Yeah.
So I am sticking by that one, but I am not sticking by the fact that James Washington, who is already in a walking boot, is definitely going to be the wide receiver in an offense that likes to run wide receiver 3 sets. So I'm just saying, if Jalen Tolbert is available for cheap in your leagues, which he should be because he was already late in Superflex, he's like a late second, early third. Maybe he's a little bit earlier in non-Superflex leagues if you're still playing in those. But you can still acquire him for pretty much whatever he was drafted for. You have to think 3 steps ahead to even think like, okay, Jalen Tolbert's a starter in year 1. But it could happen. So if he's easily acquirable, you don't have to put your stamp of approval on it. But I am going to point back to this clip when it happens and tell you that Jalen Tolbert's got a decent opportunity. And you were being glass half full, which is strange. Or no, that's normal. You're usually the glass half full. I'm usually the glass half empty. But before the show, you were saying, well, I'm not worried about James Washington in a walking boot right now. While I agree that it is very far from the season, it's also the part of the season where they don't have to report injuries. So he could be any numbers of injured, from my foot kind of hurt, so I'm in a walking boot and I don't need to be practicing right now, to the dude's not playing this season. And you don't know because they don't have to report it. I guess if he weren't playing this season, something would have leaked, right? Because that's probably big enough. It's probably big enough news to leak it. But I don't know. He could be missing 5 to 6 games, and we have no idea because they don't have to tell us right now.
No, they don't have to tell us anything at this point. So it's just, I don't know. I'm more along the lines of it's May, or now June rather, and there's still plenty of time for them to get back on the field. And when we get through to some other guys, I mean, I'm more interested in soft tissue injuries than guys being in a walking boot. That's just my particular take on the situation, because hamstring injuries are the things that can reoccur.
I'm with you. I don't. I especially fast players. I can't stand when I hear that fast players have soft tissue injuries, because we brought up Curtis Samuel, but they're countless. I mean, I would almost, if you could bet on if a player was going to have a secondary injury, not even close to trying to pretend to be a doctor, just the regular fantasy guy that's been doing this for a while. If I had to place betting odds on if a player was going to get a secondary soft tissue injury after having one major soft tissue injury, it's probably like maybe plus 110, maybe I could see it being even. I could see it being even odds. So it worries you even at this point in the year. So Skyy Moore, if you wanted to allude to that, is did you confirm he is dealing with the hamstring injury?
That was reported.
Now. Okay.
That was reported back in at least 3 weeks ago at this point, when they were going through like OTA. So but no updates because the
No,
team
up
doesn't have
because
to
they don't
report
have
them.
to. Yeah, they
Right.
don't have to.
Yeah.
So why would they even update you?
Yeah.
I would
That's
argue
probably
that
why
they
we've
would.
seen more clips of Justin Ross like doing things in camp, just
Yeah.
because they've been limiting Skyy Moore.
Sure. And while we're on the topic, I didn't put this on the show sheet, but we should probably talk about the difference between. Let's head over to Green Bay Packers camp with Watson and
Dropping balls.
well, not so much that as Dubs impressing. So Dubs is the fourth round pick, of course, and then Christian Watson was the first round pick. And it looks like Dubs has more of a role in the offense as of now. Obviously, we're in rookie minicamp. We'll be in training camp, mini camps here soon. But that's pretty impressive for because the worry with Christian Watson is that Aaron Rodgers won't trust a rookie. Okay, so
Right.
now we're talking about trusting a fourth round rookie. So it doesn't usually make sense. But then don't you just throw his history out the window, considering the fact that the only viable option he has is Alan Lazard, who's like
You
fine.
should. Yeah.
I mean, Alan Lazard's fine, but if he like, you're really happy if he's your third option, like Tim Patrick. If Tim Patrick's your
Mhm.
third option, oh my goodness, you are loving life. If Tim Patrick's your first option, you got a
Probably
lot of
not.
injuries.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the same deal where it's like if Alan Lazard's your first option, you're in trouble. So can Aaron Rodgers even be picky?
No, but I think he can at least. It's about catering the offense to his style of play at this point, and that's what at least Hackett for a time, but Matt LaFleur they've had to do in order to get them to the point where Aaron Rodgers has essentially been a back-to-back like MVP candidate,
Mm-hmm.
and like to get to this point, like where they're getting to the NFC Championship games, like all of that stuff. And so with the way that he plays, you're going to need players that can actually fit that mold. Now you're never going to be able to find a Devontae Adams replacement, especially not in
Yeah,
this draft.
right.
Like
Even a
where
first
they were
round.
picking at,
Yeah.
absolutely not. But can you find the functions that he had on that type of offense? Like, can you find at least a guy that can run like intermediate routes, like with some sort of precision? Okay, that's fine. Like you might be able to do that with Christian Watson, like depending on if he can actually start catching the ball. Okay, fine. You can squint and see that.
Right.
Can you find a good run blocker as well? Because that's always been a part of their scheme, like there in Green Bay. Alan Lazard does that very well.
Very
And it could
well,
also
yeah.
be the contested catch like type of guy. Lazard can do that too. So it's like you can find players that fit the functionality like of what Devontae Adams did and what they need to have on the field, but they don't have a field stretcher, at least not in my mind, like not the way that MVS could actually garner the
Sure.
attention of the secondary, of like a defensive secondary. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. But overall, like, do you have enough of the parts and pieces in place to recreate 75% of that offense?
Sure.
It's going to take some time, but I think that's what they're trying to push forward with, or that's what they're trying to push towards. And I think those guys can get you to that point. It's just is Rodgers going to be able to at least have the confidence in those guys to be able to do it? And like, I don't know, with some of the reports, it seems like it's a work in progress to say the least.
Our listeners are dying inside because I said Christian Watson was a first round pick and they're just in their head. He was a second round pick.
Yeah.
I know the feels, guys. Happens
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, he was a second round pick. So, I mean, he could have won in the first round, in my opinion. But anyways, Christian Watson's not showing out great right away. A lot of rookies are not going to. Romeo Dubes is a guy that is worth pushing up your board. I mean, you're pushing him up over the likes of like Thornton. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, okay. So you're pushing him up of guys that you have to hold your breath and plug your nose to draft anyways. So if he's got early reports, yeah, if it's a first round pick, you can kind of ignore what's going on right now. Jamar Chase is a perfect example. If you didn't learn your lesson from that, you're never going to learn your lesson. But if you were worried about Jamar Chase suddenly forgetting how to catch, then, you should have learned your lesson from that and realize that right now for those high profile wide receivers that we know are good, maybe you don't listen. Maybe you don't listen to even that Christian Watson's got some troubles right now. But if it's a fourth round guy and he's even fourth round rookie pick in dynasty drafts, and he's getting some positive buzz like Justin Ross, like Romeo Dubes, yeah, Absolutely. Just push them up the board a little bit over the guys who you're hearing nothing about right now.
Yeah.
So we've got one more wide receiver room to get to on today's show, and that's going to be the Denver Broncos wide receiver room. So if you've listened to the Audible, which you should be listening to, Cecil went in depth about this wide receiver group. And if you want to listen to any Denver insider, I would say listen to Cecil Lammy. That's not because he's going to be editing this show for us later. That is 100% genuine. So in their discussion, Cecil neglected to say how he found this information or put his signature on it, but he gave very, very strong indicators that Courtland Sutton is Russell Wilson's favorite wide receiver. I thought this would happen as well. I thought that Courtland Sutton was going to fit Russell Wilson just a little bit better. I also am maybe in the minority in believing that Courtland Sutton is just a little bit better than Jerry Jeudy. Not to say that Jerry Jeudy's bad, but maybe Sutton's a little underrated. So in my opinion, this kind of confirms my priors. What do you think about the debate between the two?
No, absolutely. I think coming into this, I think the thought process was that, yeah, if there was going to be any wide receiver that would best fit like what Russell Wilson has historically done best, it would be Courtland Sutton. I mean, even when like Courtland Sutton was originally drafted and like the quarterback situation they had there at the time, what was it? Like, who was the quarterback when Courtland Sutton was Flacco out there at the time?
Well, yeah, that was the year that they brought Flacco in. Yeah, I don't think he
Yeah,
played the whole season, but yes.
right. But the thought process being that, well, if you have a wide receiver that primarily plays on the outside, a jump ball type or that archetype of receiver doesn't really fit what Flacco does well or what he likes to do at this stage of his career. And then the same thing for, I think, any of the quarterbacks that they were trotting out last year. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, more of a precision passer, needs to see it to throw it. I mean, even if you wanted to throw Drew Lock in there, sure, like volatile as all get out, absolutely. But if you wanted to calm him down and put him in some sort of structure, the way that you would want him to succeed would not really involve a guy like Courtland Sutton. That would be more towards what Jerry Jeudy is supposed to do on the field. Intermediate routes, quick passing, like that sort of thing. Get the ball in the hand, let him go. That fits them to a T. But Russell Wilson, historically, I mean, he has led the league, or at least been in the top 3 in the league in adjusted yards per attempt. His completion percentage over expected, especially on passes of 15 air yards is more, top 3 as well. Overall completion percentage has been top 4 in the league for the past like 5 seasons straight. That has been Russell Wilson's game. And so he has the down year last year, bust up his thumb, whatever the case may be. But overall, historically, like Russell Wilson has thrived like on the deep ball. Like that has been a part of his game. And so now if he has the opportunity to be able to do that and connect with the receiver, that is his calling card. Like Courtland Sutton has been able to win on contesting catches, win on the intermediate and deep passes as well. I mean, that really fits, like those two fit together in my mind, more so than what Jerry Jeudy, like what he does and like how he wins on the field. So going into this, I thought Courtland Sutton was going to be the winner if you had to pick between the two of Russell Wilson coming to Denver. And it's glad, like, at least for me, it's good to see that playing out. It's not to say that Jerry Jeudy's bad, not to say that Jerry Jeudy's going to be left out in the cold and you should just be drafting, I don't know, Tim Patrick or the tight ends or something like that. But if you had to pick between the two, then Courtland Sutton, even coming out of college, we thought was a better prospect than Jerry Jeudy for the most part. And now with Russell Wilson under center, I've been targeting Courtland Sutton as much as I possibly can. Like if I can get him in a trade package, absolutely. Like I think the value is there for you to want to try and buy into this offense, like for at least like whatever sort of window. If you play Dynasty in windows, Courtland Sutton should fit into that window. Pushing for a championship this year, Courtland Sutton should definitely fit into that window, like for this year as well. So overall, like Sutton is should be definitely a guy that you're targeting at this point.
Correction, it was Case Keenum.
Oh, it was Case Keenum. Oh, that was him.
2018 Broncos trivia.
Yeah, that
Look,
was tough.
that time Cecil was rolling in his grave trying to yell at me through the ether. Yeah, Case Keenum in 2018. So Courtland Sutton was, like I said, already my pick. But we're kind of getting our priors confirmed already, unless you believed in Jeudy. But I guess we'd be remiss not to mention his Jerry Jeudy's legal troubles. That would be for Drew Davenport to explain more in depth. However, legal troubles
getting
usually
tossed out.
Huh?
All that stuff's supposed to be getting tossed out. Last I heard.
I heard it's supposed to be getting tossed out too, but that does not mean that there will be no suspension or anything, right? I mean,
We'll see. Yeah, you're right. We don't know it all.
yeah, it decides. I mean, did Roger Goodell eat his Wheaties that day or not?
Who knows?
There's no consistency. So, yeah, I wouldn't have let it. Let me backtrack. I wouldn't let it advise my drafting on Jerry Jeudy. So he's probably not going to take any suspension. I'll just say maybe it's a tiny little dink, considering that we don't know what Roger Goodell might do if you gave a little stain on the NFL shield. Before we get to the last topic, we will be moving to our own podcast feed for you watching on YouTube. It doesn't matter to you, so please keep doing that YouTube stuff like subscribe, rate, review, all of that. That really helps us with the YouTube overlords. If you listen to us on apps like Spotify, etc., we will be on our own feed. So just make sure to look out for that. Please subscribe to those feeds so you can get updated on hearing us. And that's the same that we'll go for the mailbag show, which Chris was just on, the Dynasty show, etc. Those will all be going on their own feeds so we can battle those overlords individually. Instead of having the mishmash of all of us, you'll be getting the Audible back on their own feed and us on our own feeds. So the last topic that we're going to cover is Josh Jacobs, who has not reported to OTAs. That's kind of a non-news note, except for I just wanted to use it as the opportunity to kind of talk about his contract. And basically, we just want to engage in our solidarity for Josh Jacobs and others in his situation, and that why the heck would he go to OTAs when they declined his 5th-year option? If I'm Josh Jacobs and you want to decline my 5th-year option because you want to go in a different direction with your new regime, even though you came in and gave Derek Carr all this money, but apparently you didn't like me, I would say it's fine. It's well within your right. But if my toe hurts, I am not practicing. if my fever is 1 degree above average, I am not playing.
Yeah.
And that's how it has to work for a running back. Dalvin Cook came out a few years ago and said that he was similar. He said that his contract had to do, or some of his decisions had to do with his contract. Look, to us, these guys put on their nice uniforms and they go play an awesome game. But it's also their job. So Josh Jacobs has no guarantee for his future right now. Why the heck would he show up for OTAs? Now, that doesn't mean that you should panic and that his ADP should drop because, he's going to show up probably to play the season because he needs to get a paycheck next year.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean he not only is he not stupid, he's probably very smart. Don't go do something voluntary when you don't have guaranteed future with the team, and don't push yourself to play if you don't have a guaranteed future with the team. I can't guarantee he's not going to push himself to play because I don't know him. I wouldn't personally, no matter how bad I wanted a Super Bowl, just because at the end of the day you have to think about your family, etc. But if it does affect his ADP, I already think he's a great value, at least in best ball, right? Dynasty gets a little more dicey. Let's get to your take on the current situation, then we'll talk about how we feel about his dynasty value.
Yeah, I think we should probably have to readjust his dynasty value moving forward, because what's the likeliest scenario for his future? Not just this year, but let's say for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years or something like that. In my mind, probably the best case scenario is he's Melvin Gordon.
I was going to say this. It's almost like we've been doing this for a while.
That's my thought process. It's just like he becomes a 1B somewhere. He becomes Melvin Gordon. He becomes Jamal Williams. He becomes insert RB, like RB1B, RB2 name here. It's part of a back end of a committee where he can be productive in his own right, has contingent value on specific weeks should the primary running back go down. But overall, we're talking about, let's say, 10 to 12 touches per game, something along those lines. It would be a part of a running back tandem. Let's say, and also the best landing spot or scenario for him. Let's say the Ravens get tired of paying Gus Edwards after his extension last year, and they want to bring in Josh Jacobs afterwards. He'll have a massive pay cut. That'd be perfect. Perfect situation for him, because we know the way that he plays the game opens himself up to injuries. Remember the shoulder injuries that he's suffered, that's rookie season, because he almost
Mhm.
couldn't complete his rookie year, and then also like each subsequent year afterwards.
He's
So
been
I'd say
injured every year.
not to say that he's a bad running back. It's just the
Not at
hits that
all.
he opens himself up to, and also the deficiency of the passing game make his skill set somewhat limited. And I think that's what the Raiders need to reevaluate. They're bringing in a new coaching staff. I mean, they're also making moves on offense, and they're changing the way that they play the game offensively. So if they're moving away from this power running team, trying to feature the passing game a bit more, yeah, trying to like taking a step back to reevaluate their running back room and seeing what sort of functionality they need like on offense absolutely makes sense. So I can understand why they've kind of held off or declined like his 5th-year option, because they do want to see, hey, do you fit into the type of scheme that we're trying to implement here in Las Vegas at this point? So if things don't work out, yeah, that's kind of the way I see like his career kind of unfolding from here on out. So that would drop his dynasty value. But if you can talk to the current manager that has Jacobs on their roster,
Mhm.
who might be already kind of looking for a way to get out from under him, if you can get him for that
Yeah.
RB2 value, sure. Yeah, I think
I
that'd be a good guy to target.
I think that Josh Jacobs managers are going to be kind of in denial right now. I think
Probably.
you're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer to get a good value on Josh Jacobs, but I don't even know that I'd recommend ever trading for him. And here's why. First, let me start with Josh Jacobs is very underrated. In my opinion, one of the most underrated running backs in the league by a lot of advanced metrics. He's towards the top. I don't believe that he's ever been used properly with the Raiders. And I think that that has been towards detriment to his film. And what is a new organization going to do? What do they have to go off of? Essentially the same all 22 that we're going to go off of.
Mhm.
And so, McDaniels is going to see misusage for Josh Jacobs, at times a first and second down thumper, which is not what I believe that he'd be coming into the league. I did believe that he could be a 3-down workhorse, but he hasn't been used at Alabama, he demonstrated the ability to be a regular feature in the passing offense. Never, ever has been that with the Raiders. And we could go back and say, we can pull up the sound bites of old Gruden telling the reporters, I need to get Josh Jacobs the ball more in the passing game. But
Yeah.
guess what you didn't do? Get him the ball in the passing game. And Josh Jacobs never did anything wrong in the passing game. He was never given that opportunity. So I think that this could be maybe a weird situation where Josh Jacobs doesn't get the 5th year because it is a new coaching staff. So why do they really have to give him the 5th year? Because the way it works for running backs, their contract's going to be essentially the same as what it was with. Honestly, they could probably decline his 5th year and give him a cheaper contract next year than
Yeah.
what they would have gave him on the 5th year. I would venture to say in this unique situation, that might be what happens. He gets maybe even a Kenyon Drake 2-year, $10 million.
Mhm.
Or more likely, he gets a James Conner like 2.3 million a year. And they save a ton of money by declining his 5th year and they keep him on the roster because just because they decline their 5th year, in most cases, that's bad, especially at running back. I don't want a running back that's going into free agency next year, almost ever, because the reason that Melvin Gordon came to both of our brains is because that's what happens. Every time that's what happens. A running back goes up for free agency and they
Mhm.
go to a worse situation. Um, Now, maybe Josh Jacobs goes to a situation where he's used properly, so less touches, better quality, perhaps. But that is a stretch, especially with dynasty managers that are going to be in denial and still trying to get decent value for their first round running back.
Josh Jacobs to Miami, calling it now.
I thought of that a little bit too. I was thinking about mentioning that, but they just have such a hodgepodge there. I have no. I mean,
Who
Sony
knows what
Michelle could.
that whole offense is going to look like next year?
Sony Michelle might have 800 yards rushing this year. I would not be super
And then if
surprised.
they move
Well,
on from Tua, like who knows what they're going to look like in a couple of years now?
yeah, yeah. So good year for Josh Jacobs in best ball in redraft because his value has plummeted. Really, I mean, he's going down there with he's going like a whole 2 tiers after Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they're the same. I would project them both similarly. So, take them a little bit later than Travis Etienne. But in Dynasty, maybe a little bit more weary on the situation. But like I said, it would be a match made in heaven if they just Well, not for Josh Jacobs. He would obviously rather make them more money with his
Yeah.
5th-year option, but he'd still have a job if he signed a 2-year. I'd be a little salty that they're paying me less than they would have, but it is what it is, man. It's a business. I think he could be a Raider for the next couple of years, because the last thing that we didn't mention is just like, is Zamir White going to be the answer? And in my
Maybe.
opinion,
I don't think
yeah.
so.
In my opinion, it's probably no. I think Zamir White is better than Kenyon Drake right now at both of their points in their respective career. I think
Yes.
Zamir White was a decent 4th-round pick, I think. Rashad White was a 3rd-round pick. I think Zamir was a 4th-round pick.
Yes.
I think Zamir White was a good pick at the time, but he can't be your future plans for replacing what Josh Jacobs does to your offense.
Right. Yeah, 100% agree.
Running back is a replaceable position. I'm not saying that it's not. It's probably the most replaceable position on the field. But when you're competing in the AFC West, where every position is stacked on all of your rivals' teams, you probably don't want Zamir White to be your starting running back.
So what you're telling me is the Raiders are going to draft Bijan next year?
Essentially, they would have to, but you don't usually see teams banking on getting running backs in next year's draft the way that you do with quarterbacks, because it is so weird. Like, running backs, like Chuba Hubbard was like a rock star, and then he had a bad year, and then he was like a 4th or 5th round pick, and it's like, you never know what's gonna. So you can't do that at running back like you can at quarterback. I feel like I could tell you 2 years from now what quarterback a team's gonna draft, but if they're in the building, I think their building has an idea. If they don't have a quarterback now, they might know who they're going to be targeting in 2 years.
Yeah.
And just keep that in the back of their head, and just keep tabs on that player. Like, I feel like NFL franchises will do that for quarterback. It's just, that's impossible to do.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree.
So, with that being said, I think Josh Jacobs still has a decent shot to wind up with the Raiders, but I would not trade for him right now, because even if he does, probably a decrease in value in Dynasty. You probably trade for him maybe next year or the year after that. He's still going to be a reasonably young running back coming off of his first contract, and that's when you might want to scoop him up. But unless you have anything to add, that's going to be it for today on the Dynasty Newsletter. Remember, we're going to be all on our new feeds that started actually today. So if you listen to us on Spotify, like I use Spotify, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please just enter the Dynasty Newsletter in your search bar and just go ahead and click that subscribe button, so you'll start getting our notifications. For myself, for Chris, that's going to do it for today, and we will catch y'all next time.
Peace.